Next, we talk with Chris Taylor of Uber Technologies in Chicago about the operations of the popular ride-sharing business and legislation that will come up in the fall veto session that Uber believes imposes unfair regulations on the company. This runs about 18 minutes.
Chris Taylor with Uber, thanks for joining us again on the Illinois Channel.
Thank you for having me, Terry. It's great to be here.
Last time we spoke, we were awaiting decision by the governor whether or not he would veto a bill that would have applied regulations to Uber. And you were telling us at that time, back in the spring, that this would have been onerous and really have negatively impact your operations. Now, subsequent to that, the governor did veto the bill, as you wished. But now as we go into the fall veto session, there will be an effort to override that veto and have those regulations applied. Can you remind us, what were those regulations and why do you think that they would impact your operations so much?
Absolutely. And I can also do a quick little reminder for people who are from parts of the state where they don't have Uber, who we are and what we do. And we're a technology company, and we make a smartphone app that basically is the magical connection point between the digital world and the physical world, whereby tapping your phone twice allows a car to arrive and it's ready and willing to take you where you need to go. So that's what we do. And in doing so, we come up against some old industries that haven't faced competition for a very long time. And so that's the taxi industry. And that industry has provided a lot of resistance. And they went down to Springfield and pushed through a bill that is rather hostile to our industry. And that's the bill we're speaking about that the governor eventually vetoed. And there are a couple particular elements of that bill that are difficult for us. The first of which is applying a taxi industry insurance scheme to the rideshare industry. And the rideshare industry, and Uber in particular, we carry triple the level of insurance that a taxi does in Chicago. So we carry $1 million of primary commercial liability insurance, whereas taxis only carry $350,000. However, this bill applies that $350,000 in a different structure that's very harmful for our business. It doesn't make consumers safer, but it does increase costs significantly for the business, and so we don't support that. And then second, it does a very odd mechanical thing where it has an hours bifurcation for drivers, where depending on how many hours they drive a week, they're subject to different sets of regulation. And a driver that goes over 18 hours a week for 2 weeks in a row, for whatever reason, all of a sudden has to have special vehicle plating, has to go through a different type of licensing structure, has to be subject to local taxi vehicle regulations, which in Chicago means, I believe, a max of 4 years old for the vehicle. So it takes a lot of people who were really appreciating the flexible opportunity to drive on a rideshare platform, and makes it a lot harder for them to do that. And we would expect to see a lot of those people no longer want to provide those services. So that means fewer cars available, longer waits for rides, more expensive rides for consumers. And so these are just things that are not about safety, they're about restricting competition and protecting the taxi industry.
When you say that you have $1 million versus $350,000 for the cabs, if I am a passenger in a Uber ride and we're in an accident, would I be covered? My health care costs be covered by that $1 million insurance policy?
So the $1 million insurance policy goes towards the rider, the driver, the vehicle, and it's the combined single limit value for everything involved. And that's at, again, triple the level of the taxi industry.
So, and you're saying this is apples to apples. If I was in a car accident with a taxi, the most that I could get would be $350,000, and if the cab driver is injured, we might have to share that as far as the, okay. And that would be the same then with the $1 million with you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you say it's unfair the way they apply it. How do they apply it that makes this unfair? The insurance, that is.
Basically what they do is they add a different type of insurance structure to a portion of time where the driver might not be providing commercial service. So in rideshare, the interesting thing about the business model is that it's typically part-time drivers, and it's you or me or someone else who in their free time wants to drive and give people rides. So it's a personal vehicle. So during the majority of time that they're in that vehicle, it could be a personal vehicle and their personal insurance applies. And then that person can turn on their phone, and when they go onto the Uber system, then we provide insurance. And we provide different layers of insurance. So when commercial activity starts, so when that person accepts a trip and then is on the way to pick you up as a rider, when they're driving you around after they drop you off, you're protected by $1 million of primary liability coverage and $1 million of uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage as well. However, the in-between time, what we sometimes call period one, is when they're online, but they have not accepted a trip. And so that person could be sitting in a Starbucks, drinking a coffee or watching TV at home, or they could be driving their kids to school, and they turn the phone on just to see if there's any demand. At that point in time, they're not necessarily engaged in commercial activity, and so their personal insurance is primary, and we provide contingent coverage at double state minimum levels. So
I know one of the other items that you had said is that you do more background checks because you check criminal records outside of Illinois, where taxis only services only check in state as far as criminal background checks. But for the sake of discussion, if one was, for whatever reason, attacked by an Uber driver while they were a passenger, does Uber provide any protection in those instances?
So our commercial liability policy is in effect anytime the rider's involved. So that primary $1 million policy. And one thing that's really important to know is that, yes, you're correct. Our background checks are far more thorough. Since the last time we talked, one very exciting development was that Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City, he had his safety consulting firm review our background check process. And the preliminary results were that they stated that our process was fundamentally more thorough than existing options typically used in the for-hire car service, so meaning taxis. And we do check far more databases more rigorously than the taxi industry does.
I want to just make sure, was that a yes, that the insurance would cover, not just if it were in an accident, but if one were attacked by a driver?
So truthfully, I need to check with my risk management team. I believe it would. We put safety number one, and we comply, absolutely and upfront with all investigations, and we try to make sure upfront that none of that ever happens.
Let's remind people, in how many states is Uber now operating, and for how long have you been operating?
So Uber was founded in 2009, and we came to Illinois in Chicago in 2011. At this point, I know we're in, I believe, over 240 cities in about 45 countries. And in the U.S., over half the U.S. population lives within the service range of Uber.
And, just before we started to do the interview today, I heard a blurb, and I don't have any details, that there might be some kind of I don't know if it's a merger or a combined business operation between Uber and Spotify. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, so Travis, our CEO, made an exciting announcement this morning. It's nothing like a merger or anything like that, but it's a partnership between us and Spotify, where when you get in a car, we can have music integrated vehicles such that in your Uber app, you can control your Spotify playlists and have that go directly to the stereo in the car. So just one other way that we're innovating and bringing new technology to the experience, and that riders can listen to their own music while they're getting a ride.
What kind of a feedback do you get? And by that, I don't mean positive or negative. You can tell me that. But what kind of how do you collect feedback from your riders to know if they're enjoying the ride and if what you're doing is being met positively on the street?
Well, one of the best parts about our system is the accountability that our rating system implies. And so what we do is every single trip afterwards, before you can request another trip, you have to rate that trip. So you give it a 5-star rating, and you can type in great comments about the car or the driver, or if it wasn't as positive an experience, you can rate it lower, and you can provide specific feedback as to why it wasn't good. And then what we do on our end, we have a customer service team all across the country that replies on average within about 30 minutes. And they'll ask you how it was, they'll try to make the experience right, and then they'll take all of that feedback for a specific driver, And if a driver has consistently poor reviews about certain issues, say it's routing or not going in an efficient direction, then we'll follow up with that driver and give them specific advice about how to do better. So we might coach them about how to use their GPS system, for example. And that's the steps that we take, because we want to make sure it's a good experience for everybody, both the rider and the driver.
Have you had a chance to talk directly with any of the lawmakers before they go down and consider a vote on whether to override the veto?
Absolutely. So after the governor vetoed the bill, we've spent a lot of the fall speaking with legislators and just providing them with more information. When the bill went through the House the first time, it was honestly very fast. We did not have a big team in Springfield, and we weren't really ready for it. We were focused on the city of Chicago, where most of our business was. Since then, we've been trying to grow and expand, but we really wanted to educate people about what rideshare is and what it means for Illinois and all the benefits of it, and how we are safe and what we can do on that front. And so we've been meeting with them, and I'm optimistic that they'll reconsider their votes going into this session, because the bill is frankly just bad for their constituents.
Before we let you go, I know it's, like I said, it's been about 6 months or so since last we spoke. How is the ridership? Is it growing within? Are you getting more and more acceptance? Have you looked at the numbers as far as how many are utilizing your services in the Chicagoland area?
So as the person who runs the business, I watch the numbers very closely, and I can say that we've been growing very well. On average, nationwide, our business doubles every 6 months. We're a very aggressively growing company, and Chicago has been leading the pack. We're a top 5 market for Uber globally, and we're very excited to be that, and we will keep growing, and we want to keep growing. But that's why we're also involved in these legislative battles, is because as we grow, we're facing opposition from a taxi industry that doesn't want competition, and we want to make sure that legislators are doing what we think is the right thing, which is ensuring safety, but also allowing for competition that creates better services, both for riders and for drivers, as an opportunity to earn more money.
If anyone wants to apply to become an Uber driver, how would they get a hold of you, and what kind of a background check would you do on them?
Yeah, so if anybody wants to be a partner and drive on the platform, all you have to do is go to uber.com and look at the top of the website, and there'll be a little place to click for signing up to be a driver partner. And the first thing you do is you enter all your information, and we put you through a background check. And so that's federal, state, multi-state, county, the whole gamut. And then we also check your documents. So we'll make sure your registration is valid, your insurance, et cetera, and put you through our training program. And assume—
Do they have to pay for that background check?
No, they do not. So we provide the background check, just like we provide the commercial insurance for all drivers who get activated onto the system. And so it's really our goal to make it as easy as possible for people to get on the system, because there's more demand than we can fulfill at the moment, and we want more drivers.
And I think you said, I cut you off and I apologize, that assuming someone passes the background check, how quickly then are they become a driver, and do they go under any kind of training, and what kind of money would they make?
Yeah, so assuming you pass a background check, you do then have to go undergo our training. Most drivers complete it in a day or two, and it's a series of videos and online trainings, and then you can get out there and go start driving. And on average in Chicago, drivers are making double state minimum wage per hour in fares. And so the ones who are driving at peak times, like a Friday night, a Saturday night, morning rush, especially when the weather's cold out like it is now, those people can make far in excess of that. They can make $25 an hour in fares. And so that's really what people love about it, is the opportunity that it presents to make a positive impact for their family, for themselves.
One thing, and I apologize, I wanted to ask one last thing. I just saw a report the other day I was reminded of, that someone took an Uber ride and it ended up costing something like $500, I think, to get home. Which, is there some kind of a sliding demands, a pricing structure, or how would one avoid that so that they know what the price is going to be before they arrive at their destination and have some shocking price? Because normally I think your argument would be that Uber would be less expensive than a cab, correct?
So on average in Chicago, we're about 50% less expensive than a taxi. So we're half the price of a Chicago City taxi. but we do have dynamic pricing built into the platform. And so what that means is in periods of excess demand where we can't get someone a ride reliably, we have a server that runs an algorithm that will increase prices to ensure reliability. And the point of that is to provide an incentive for more drivers to get out on the road, because we don't have a capped base of supply. And so what that means is that the prices will go up momentarily to bring more drivers onto the platform. The one thing that's really important to know, though, is that it's always transparent to the rider. So when prices are elevated, we very clearly note to riders. So the screen will have a little lightning bolt on it. It will require a rider to type in the surge multiple. So if prices are twice normal prices, you have to type in 2.0 and confirm that you understand. If you don't want that, you can click another button that says notify me when surge ends. And so the rider will be notified when it goes back down. Or if you want to check.
So again, the rider, just to emphasize, the rider would type in the multiple that currently it's being priced. It might be New Year's Eve as an example, where there would be a heavy demand of people coming home from parties, and then they obviously don't want to drive while they've been drinking. So in that case, okay, so I just want to confirm that you were saying that.
And one other feature that's really good is what's called fare estimate. So you can also, at any point, enter your destination. And since the app knows where you are based on GPS and then your destination, it'll give you an estimate of what the total fare would be. You can do that both at normal times or during times of dynamic pricing as well.
All right. Well, Chris Taylor, we appreciate you taking the time. We'll see what happens on the veto override, and we'll follow the events, and maybe we can do a follow-up with you at some point in the future.
I would love to speak with you again, Terry. Thanks very much for your time.